Fantastic. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining us. I get often asked by lots of students, lots of new immigrants into Canada, lots of folks who are perhaps struggling to find their feet in the marketplace. I often get asked by them if I would mentor them in the work that they're doing. Would I play a role in perhaps guiding them in their next path? How are they planning to move forward with their careers? What are the next opportunities? What trainings should they be considering? One of the things that I've always mentioned is that a mentor is not somebody that says, hey, here's how you go and do it. A mentor is somebody who says, let's go and get this done together. They're with you along the way. They've achieved certain things in their career, in the work that they've done. And more importantly, they're constantly throwing that torch to someone who needs it in that moment when they're not quite able to see what the way out is. The pandemic has brought forward a lot of such situations. And I'm really thankful to the entrepreneurial community in Ontario, as well as those in our public not for profit sector, for stepping up and quite literally becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. We've had new situations. The new normal has brought out realities that we haven't previously contended, but our community has come together in different ways. My guests today represent two organizations that are working together on a couple of workshops and opportunities, but two institutions that have reached out to Durham College and the wider community to offer assistance in whatever way they can to help individuals realize how, with the hyper virtualization we find ourselves in today, how you can adapt and how you can gain the skill sets that you need to play your role in that marketplace. At one end, we have a firm that focuses on digital health. At another end, we have a firm and an organization that has dedicated itself to the service of our community through workshops, through recruitment campaigns, through placement programs, and whatever else have you. You know, they say that good order is the core of any solid foundation. The order that a lot of both these organizations rather, have set up really is something that you want to partake in. Firstly, I want to welcome Carmen and Kerry from the Career Foundation. And along with them, I want to welcome Medha Saraiya from Connexhealth. Carmen, let's start with you and give you the floor for a couple of minutes where you can introduce yourself and tell us one thing about what you do at the Career Foundation. Carmen?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ali, for having us here today. Thank you to the viewers who've taken the time to join. Hopefully, we can definitely answer some of your questions or even get your thought process going to kind of move you to the next steps, as Ali mentioned. So my name is Carmen Darley. I am the Employer Services Consultant, specializing in the IT and tech sector within Career Foundation. I am also the IT chair, and what that all means is basically my role and my responsibility in as a employer services consultant is to really connect the job seekers to the employers by figuring out and finding out the best fit. And why do I say that with such confidence and with such oomph is because a lot of times a job seeker may have the skills, however, they may not be a good fit for the employer. And our whole goal, and my goal at least, is to make sure that we've identified some of these gaps and barriers right up in the forefront so that we can plan a very successful path for our job seekers and our employers.
Thank you so much for that. Here in Durham region, we have a firm called Durham Recruiting that we do a lot of applied research work with. And their CEO, I've said this many times, so for those of you who are hearing this again, I do apologize, but it's a fitting moment where Dustin Kettle, who is the CEO, always says, often we hire for skill and fire for fit, because we're not having those conversations for fit at the get-go. And I think, Carmen, the role that you're playing in assessing fit in IT roles is something that we're going to unpack as we go along for the next 45 to 50 minutes. Kerry, I'm going to turn it over to you. I've been working with you since the relationship between Durham College and Career Foundation had begun approximately a year ago. and then we met at Canadian Women in Cyber. Can you tell us a little bit about how long have you been at the Career Foundation, and what is it that you're most passionate about in your work, Kerry?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate being here again, Ali. So I've been with the Career Foundation for 14 years, and I've been in the employment service field for about 16 years. So it's been a long and wonderful journey. I've had many different roles within the Career Foundation, from counseling, from job development, like Carmen was speaking about. I've also done some program coordination with federal programs in STEM areas as well. And what I'm most passionate about, I'm most passionate about seeing people progress. So I've had the opportunity to be able to see an individual come right out of school with lots and lots of skills, but with not a whole lot of experience. And then, taking them from that point right to where they have some experience through a placement. They've been working in their field. It's so refreshing. It's so exhilarating, and I'm very grateful that I get to do that.
And I want to work with that piece about what gets us exhilarated, because there have been moments where you've had to mentor individuals, you've had to coach them about getting into certain roles that they previously wouldn't have imagined themselves to be in. And I do want to come back to that about your job in taking a lead role in getting people to understand how their skill sets translate into different environments. It's never a one size fits all, regardless of what you've graduated in. I always say this, and to our audience, we have about 70 odd people listening. I do a lot of work in AI and cybersecurity, and I often give the example of Danny Pahar, where Danny Pahar is a renowned cybersecurity expert on the Forbes Technology Council. And in a power hour with me, he said, I have zero industry accreditations. I don't have a CISSP, I don't have a CEH, but I'm accredited in different ways. And I think that's something that we're going to unpack a little bit more with Kerry and the services that you can get from the Career Foundation. Medha, that's the perfect foundation upon which to bring you into the conversation. You were a nurse, actively involved in the community, and then you took the entrepreneurial leap. Besides telling us a little bit about Connexhealth, can you talk to us about what that journey has been like to move from employment within the sector to starting off your own practice in digital health? Medha?
Thanks, Ali, and thank you to Career Foundation and CyberX for hosting this. Appreciate it. Um, that is a very interesting question. So, as you said, my journey started off as a nurse, and I've worked in community, acute care, long term care, all facets of nursing. And sometimes when you are actively working, you look at the gaps, you see the gaps from within.
Yeah.
And that is when I realized that we had to do something to fill those gaps. And thus, we started Connexhealth, and our entire company is based on connecting people. So, connecting healthcare providers with healthcare users, connecting pharmacies with drivers, connecting parents with ABA therapists who can help with autism care. So, that is where our company started, in connecting resources.
Yep.
And when you talk about a journey, this has truly been a journey for me personally, because I came from zero IT background to being a CEO of an IT company that works within the healthcare space, which was a huge learning curve, because just like you said, Danny, I don't have any specific qualifications in IT,
Yeah.
but it was something I had to learn and pick up. And thanks to people like yourself and the team at Durham College and my other colleagues, I've been able to pick up few terms, key information to get me to the next level.
Absolutely. And that's again, thank you all for being such great panelists and that you're setting up the stage for each other. It's a brilliant sort of door to open when it comes to the learning resources that are available to you. I've said this all the time, is that one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching is because as a teacher, you're constantly learning. As you teach, you learn. You learn from those around you. You learn from the mistakes that you make as a teacher as well. And you've been someone, Medha, who has trained other nurses, who has trained other PSWs, and now you've found yourself in this environment where you're learning more about that job through the digital lens. So we will come back to that slightly. And Kerry, I want to bring it to you, and then we'll go to Carmen. And that is, I know that the Career Foundation has 7 physical locations across GTHA, but with the new normal, physicality has become something that we're all distant from, and we're predominantly virtual. Can you talk to us a little bit, Kerry, about who is the ideal candidate to come and receive some form of services from the Career Foundation?
Absolutely, Ali. So yes, I don't know even if we have an ideal candidate. So the Career Foundation works with new graduates. We also work with career changers. We also work with those who are seeking more permanent or full-time employment opportunities. We work with job seekers of all ages and have specific programming for youth under the age of 30. So those programs are completing the Circle program, our Youth Job Connection program. We have a general carpenter apprenticeship program as well, and those ones are for youth. Other programs include, we have an Empowering Abilities program, which is for job seekers with disabilities. We also have a cannabis worker training program and arborist groundworking training program as well. So many different fields and sectors. First step to connecting with us would be to, as Ali mentioned, connect with one of our 7 locations across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton areas. We are working fairly virtual these days for the most part. So we're very, very flexible. You're also able to connect with us through social media, which is a great way as well to connect. We are available on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
So reach out, connect with the team at the Career Foundation in order to take a step. Now, you mentioned stuff where you have individuals who have their resumes ready, you try and match them to different jobs that are available. You have a bank really of different companies that may be looking for certain skill sets. So my assumption is that, Kerry, you work closely with candidates, but you also work closely with different companies, which is where someone like a Carmen carves a space for herself as well. Carmen, can you give us an example of how you've been able to create successful connections between employers and potential job seekers?
Absolutely. So in my role and some of the stuff that I'm passionate about is understanding, the landscape of the employer and what their needs are. So myself, all the employer consultant, the services consultants within the Career Foundation have very robust and a good understanding of what the employers are looking for, because we develop a relationship where we want to make sure that we find the best fit for them. That's kind of one of our priorities. Once we understand what the employers are looking for and the type of culture and type of company and employer they are, then we go out and source or find the positions that they're trying to acquire and fill. And through that, we do follow some of the standard kind of foundational structures that we do with the job seekers, which is now we have to understand, what are the positions that the employer is trying to fill, what types of job seeker would be, a good fit to that position. And then what we do is we reach out, through different job boards or even through our own database, which is one of the biggest benefits, because we have our employer specialists who follows the journey of our clients and the job seekers. We're able to really quickly identify, oh, okay, so for example, an employer is looking for somebody who's really, skilled in macro and SQL, for example.
Yeah.
Right away, once I reach out to our database, to our employer specialist, they're able to say, okay, client X is really, really, really good at this. He also has other skill sets that might be beneficial to this employer. And so that's more of an internal communication that we have, which is a really strong one. And I do truly feel that, it's a really good benefit that we have for our employers. Another way is to source them externally, which is we posting it in job boards, Indeed, our own job board. So if you are just searching through Career Foundation, you'll be able to see some of the jobs that are available. And through that, that's when we, start taking a look at the candidates, review their resumes preliminarily, and see whether they do have the skills. Then we get into a deeper dive once we have the interaction with the candidates or the job seekers. We do, things like resume refresh. Something that I do is making sure that I can understand their skill set, but also understand some of the underlying skill sets that they may have on the resume, and that's not relayed in a way that it really speaks to their skills. So some of the things that I do is showcase, helping them showcase and present themselves in a certain way so that they can relay these transferable skills that they have. A really good example is, a client who is transitioning from healthcare to a very tech focused company. They have all the transferable skills that may not be on their resume, but they have what it takes and it's a good fit. So sometimes it's being able to give them the resources to find out the skills that they can attain, as well as relaying that message of the transferable skills to the employer during their interview. And then as they work through it, all the technical skills, the specifications will come along as they do their day-to-day tasks within that company. And, specifically that candidate became a really successful candidate and is still currently at the position and the organization that we matched them with. So that's some of the success stories and some of our processes that we do. And don't think of it as this is, the one size fit all, because we individualize and personalize our services to each individual and their career journey. This could be very different, right, from, one person to the other person. And that's why we are really here to assist in making sure that we have that person and the employer realize that potential.
Fantastic. And the place that both of you, Carmen and Kerry, where you've taken us to is this unique, where you've made these connections between the employers and potential job seekers. It's a really unique checkpoint that I want to halt us there for a bit, go to Medha, and then come back to the challenges that you're hearing from job seekers, the challenges that you're hearing from employers as well, and how you're trying to address that. Because I will say this, one of the comments that has come in is that there are a lot of recruitment firms that are out there. And I do want to unpack that a little bit in terms of how Career Foundation sits a little differently. So we'll come to that in a little bit. And I want to come to Medha and go into a little bit of the psychology of what's gone into setting up your own company, having to pivot because of COVID-19, and then hiring a completely new stack of service providers in order to run your operations. Medha, I think you had mentioned this to me some time ago that many people disagreed with you about your decision to go into the entrepreneurial world, and your response to them, I think you took it from Suits, was that's fine, they can disagree with me as long as they spell my name correctly, I'm good to go, because they need to know who I am. One of the things that you've done really well is, besides pivoting your services and now offering medication delivery and an Uber-like service for pharmacy services, so on and so forth, you've also been able to scale your operations by partnering, for example, with the town of Ajax. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing in the Durham region right now, and what is it that you're hiring for in the immediate? Medha?
So for the Durham region, we have had amazing opportunities, and our partnerships with Town of Ajax has been a great partnership. I must say the mayor and his team have been very operational and supportive of what we're doing. And what we do in Ajax is we do have pharmacy delivery services. So we do have some pharmacies in Ajax for whom we do deliveries, which are completely secure, traceable, compliant to the clients.
Yep.
And to facilitate these deliveries, we do need drivers.
Yep.
So that's one area where we have been actively recruiting. The second area that we pivoted during COVID was our ABA therapy that we offer our mainly youth and young adults within who unfortunately have been diagnosed with some sort of autism. And that is a virtual therapy. And in order to provide that, we have been hiring therapists as well as behavioral analysts to help us with that. And under that umbrella, now we are about to launch our respite service. And for that, we are actively looking for DSWs, PSWs, and other healthcare professionals who are qualified to take care of these young, vulnerable lives.
Yep.
Town of Ajax has been able to offer us a grant that we've been able to forward to some of our clients within the community.
Yep.
And we are still in the position of offering a little bit of grant money that's still available with us to people who are interested, especially families who are interested in getting some kind of virtual therapy for their children.
I'd agree. Thank you for that, Medha. And Medha, you've pointed out another important point, which I want to connect with where we left off with the Career Foundation. And that is, you've highlighted the fact that COVID-19, obviously, you've had to pivot as a result, so that our audience understands. The typical model was you book a PSW for a service, let's say to your parents' house, the PSW shows up, renders the service, checks out, and the service is done, fully digitized, right? Now, of course, with less and less physical contact, you've had to do a lot of these services remotely. So telemedicine being one of the things, and we'll talk about the new technologies. But Medha, you've also gone down this path of addressing the shortage of skill sets in the market by looking at doing workshops with Career Foundation. Can you talk to me a little bit about the workshops that you were planning to offer? And then we'll go to Kerry and Carmen to see how their workshops are addressing market needs. Medha, could you start off?
So, something that we are in the process of offering in collaboration with Career Foundation is training and enhanced training for our PSWs, that are postal support workers.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, COVID has enhanced or highlighted some of the problems that were persistent in our healthcare system.
Yeah.
One being shortage of skilled workers. So we are trying to get people into the workforce as soon as possible, getting them ready for a real job training per se. And those are some of the workshops that we would want to present with Career Foundation on hands-on, more of more hands-on learning. But unfortunately, right now, all the hands-on learning is happening virtually.
Yeah.
That's a new norm.
Yep.
So those are some of the workshops that we are working with.
Thank you for that. Kerry, if I can bring the conversation to you and then we'll go to Carmen. But let's take an example. We have a lot of different companies that are listening to this session. I know quite a few startups as well, or small to medium businesses. Net Mechanics is a good example, and a couple of others that are listening in right now. We also have Precise Sparklink and other companies. If they want to, sort of like what Medha had explained, is that I now need to equip the PSW community or even specialist drivers with new skill sets. When someone like a Medha, a Connexhealth, or even a Precise Sparklink or whatever have you wants to do some work with you, is there a cost to engaging the Career Foundation? What's that journey look like, and how does it come together? Kerry?
Certainly. So to start with, in regards to the cost, there are no costs associated with our services. So that's both from a company perspective as well as a job seeker perspective.
Nice.
If interested, companies can certainly sponsor any of our hiring events down the road to gain marketing exposure to a wide-reaching group of people, but there are no costs for the services that we offer at all. So for companies looking to hire, in terms of journey, we do encourage them to reach out to one of our employer services consultants like Carmen. You can find them, most of them are on LinkedIn. You can also connect with them through our website, or of course through social media as well, where you can be referred directly. We work with over 2,000 companies ranging in size and industry who utilize our programs and services to fulfill their HR needs. So through recruitment and HR solutions, we can and do tailor our services to the specific needs of each of the hiring organizations. One of these services, for example, includes having experienced staff identify candidates who are the right fit for any openings that are available.
Okay. Now, when you mention openings that are available, obviously the nature of these openings have all changed. The only constant right now is change. One of the things that we heard in some of the other sessions was a lot of companies right now are planning on a 5-day basis. Their business plans, the quarterly plans that we talk of are really not moving anywhere. It's mostly, here's what we're going to do for 5 days, and now here's what we're going to do for the next 5 days. And it kind of is a very spasmodic approach right now to how businesses are staying alive. And that's just the reality of where we find ourselves. Not across the board. Of course, there are some firms that have been able to stand steady, but the startup community, the small to medium business community has been grappling with a lot of uncertainty. Carmen, this brings you into the equation is when you have folks, whether they're PSWs, whether they're healthcare workers or graduated in the healthcare sector, or they have IT skill sets, how are you helping them cope with the skills that they need now to render their services virtually? I think Medha brought up a really important point is that, for example, if you look at somebody offering therapeutic services, body language, in-person contact all makes a difference to how you render your services. Is there anything that Career Foundation does to help them understand how to engage in the virtual realities that we're in right now?
So that's a great point that you brought up, Ali. From a job seeker's perspective, how we do a system is that we create a very safe environment to assist them with some of the trends that are happening right now. So, for example, interviewing through Zoom. It hasn't really been, something that's been done on a regular basis pre-COVID. And as we move into this as being a new norm, a lot of times how you present yourself through Zoom and how your camera works and everything, virtually, it's a little bit different from when you're in person, making sure that you make the right types of eye contact, making sure that you are still dressed professionally. A lot of times, it could be that, you just don't, the job seekers may not be able to kind of put that together. And then they show up to an interview with something that may not be suitable or wrong lighting. So prior to any of the virtual hiring events that we organize, which is something that's very beneficial during this time to kind of bridge the gaps in terms of having no contact for our employers, is to organize virtual hiring events where we can facilitate something that has the same look and feel as a real job fair, real in-person job fair that they're used to experiencing, and then actually go through the whole process with them, tell them, some of the things that we would do for them, all the end-to-end processes. And that will actually go back to Kerry's point, is that providing that HR solution to alleviate some of the administrative burdens that they may have through figuring out the logistics for Zoom events, the virtual hiring, gathering the people virtually. So these are some of the things that we've been doing at Career Foundation, and it has been really successful since, the onset of COVID.
Yep.
The other thing that, we want to make sure that, as you mentioned, there's a lot of startups, and it is a very challenging time. However, we do have solutions that can assist with some of the scaling of these startups. I know startups want to continue function their day-to-day functions, continue to grow, and not be trapped in that, less revenue coming in. So let's not realize some of the projects and ongoing initiatives that we have. The business is still going. However, we don't have the right candidates for the positions to grow the business. This is where Career Foundation can really step in and help, because we do have programs such as this training incentives that we offer to our employers. And what that essentially means, in short, is that we actually help offset some of those training costs. So during this time, this is, one of the biggest challenges in big or small companies. I think it scales from the smallest companies, businesses, to some of the larger companies, to medium-sized companies, where they will see, a depreciation in revenue and, dollar allocation. So we are here to assist those companies to make sure they have the right candidates, and also offset some of those training costs for them. We also have programs where we offer grants to employers. Of course, we have to go through, a series of criteria, checking selection criteria and everything. But the minute you kind of have that thought and have that idea, you can always reach out to me or any other employer services consultants to further discuss how you can manage that initiative with us. And again, we're here to assist and here to support and here with you throughout the journey. So I think we do have quite a bit of support throughout the Career Foundation, especially during these challenging times. So I hope that
Yeah,
really get people thinking, and the employers and organizations thinking to reach out to us to assist. And again, as Kerry mentioned, there's no cost to any of these services.
and I think it's important, right? Is that not only to hear this in terms of, hey, to the audience that's listening in, that you're being evaluated by a completely different, well, not completely different, but when we say the medium is the message, right? You are right now in a very different medium, and you are being perceived differently. So it does make a difference in terms of how you engage online. I also think that what the audience needs to pay specific attention to is the fact that Career Foundation it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street as well, in which they give advice to these companies that are hiring as well. There are issues around equity, around diversity, around racialization, around poverty. Just so that our audience can understand, there's a session that's happening later this afternoon at 3 p.m. I think with Contact North. And when you see the raison d'etre of Contact North is about rural and remote communities where what we take for granted, such as this session right now, often it's an entire event to put something like this to happen. It takes weeks of planning to make sure somebody has stable connection or a computer that can afford to do video rendering, so on and so forth. So we'll come to that a little bit as we move along. And I want to bring Medha back into the conversation here, because Medha, one of the things that you've had to also contend with is in this world where we are doing a lot of services which are kind of like in the Uber style model. You're an independent contractor, you're paid for the hours that you put in. It's depending on service, depending on needs. We operate in a SaaS and IaaS based environment where if you're required for the service and you're the first person to raise your arm, you get to render that service. What are some of the challenges that you're facing right now with retaining some of the talent that you've got? I mean, you had mentioned that you've hired a fleet of drivers now who are spread across, correct me if I'm wrong, Waterloo, Durham region, Toronto, and Hamilton. But there is that sense of how do I retain them and what else can I give them to ensure, besides the financial impetus, that this is the organization that they want to build with. How's that journey been like for you, and what are the things that you're thinking of in terms of moving forward?
That's a great question because as it's a SaaS kind of an economy, it's an on-demand economy.
Yeah,
Retention is sometimes challenging because the consistency of hours is also different. It's not like a set schedule.
yeah,
And some of the challenges that we have is um, availability.
yeah,
People, drivers sometimes give us an availability, but then the availability changes and they forget to update the system.
yeah,
It's as simple as that. But those are some of the normal operating issues. But on the other hand, what we are trying to do is we are trying to pay our drivers better rates. So to give you an example, most of the drivers who do deliveries with us can earn anywhere between $15 to $30 an hour. So they do make a decent living working. Also, our most of our pickups are very scheduled now. So we know that the pickup, if you are, for example, if you're a driver in Hamilton, you know your pickup is going to be between 1 and 2 in the afternoon.
right.
So that gives the drivers flexibility to plan the rest of their day. Because one of the things that being a contractor, we do have to ensure is we are not their sole employer.
Yeah,
They have to have other employment coming in as well. So giving them those fixed schedule helps a bit so they can plan their day with, let's say if they're driving with Uber or Instacart or any of the other fleets.
yep,
Also, our training, we do provide ongoing training and ongoing assessments and ongoing support.
yep,
That's the same thing that we are trying to do. We're launching with our PSWs and our DSW program as well, where we want to give them ongoing training and ongoing support. In the end, we want our contractors, our don't want to even call them contractors. I want to call them our associates to grow with us.
yep. And that makes
That
that makes a tremendous impact because, Medha, if I'm not mistaken, about a week ago, you had also launched a set of training programs on how to modulate your voice and voice acting, if I'm not mistaken. And I do want to come to that momentarily. So we'll just pause on that voice acting note because I really want when we're talking about the holistic skill sets, that'll be a good little thing to come back to. Um, we have about 15 to 20 minutes left, and Kerry and Carmen, a few questions have come in. At least three of them have come in. I'll put a pause on them for now, but there is one question that I wanted to gravitate us back to, and that is this aspect of after hearing someone like a Medha, and you've seen how companies that started off as a healthcare company now are sort of a technology company that happens to be in the healthcare space. Almost every other company is utilizing some form of an application, natively built or third party, in order to render their services, which means that you've taken a very specific approach to the IT sector, and you've realized that not only is it a talent gap, but also a fit gap that has to be assessed properly. What are you doing to ensure that folks who want to enter into this IT market, who may have some credentials, who want to enter into this IT market but are struggling, for example, new immigrants are struggling to get into this market? What are you doing to try and find the connections between these IT skill sets and what's happening in the market? Kerry, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Carmen.
Sure, absolutely. So most certainly we do love, our teams love working with new grads, our teams love working with new immigrants to Canada. So over the years, we have been fortunate to develop relationships with many companies in the IT and tech sectors. I myself, I believe I've mentioned that I managed our federal career focus program, and it was specifically in the STEM sectors, where I assisted new graduates with finding work in their field of study. Many of those new graduates were new immigrants to Canada as well. So due to this, we do have a good understanding of what these employers are looking for in terms of technical and soft skills, and can certainly coach individuals through those different areas. With the soft skills especially, a lot of them can be transferable skills. A lot of them are transferable skills. And that's certainly an area that we really focus on for Canadian companies. The Career Foundation is keeping abreast of the job search and workplace changes as well. So we've talked about that a little bit, occurring due to COVID-19. So the increase in remote work and communicating digitally, we can also help guide job seekers just coming out of school, new immigrants, with these best practices, as Carmen had mentioned before, in terms of the virtual interviews, the virtual learning, maybe even the virtual workplace.
And this whole the new virtual workplace, the new realities of how we engage, the new skills that are required. For example, for our audience that's listening, you would have heard in previous sessions, security services right now is not something that just by default sits under IT and you just have to figure it out. You are expected to know certain things. You are expected to have a interdisciplinary approach to that specific practice that you may have excelled at or may have graduated in with flying colors. And Carmen, this is where someone like yourself comes in because you've constantly underscored and underlined the importance of upskilling. Can you talk to us a little bit about upskilling? And this might be the right juncture to bring in one of the questions, which is, and I'll reword it. So my apologies to the person that has asked this question. I just have to reword it a little bit. And really the ethos behind this question is as follows. It says, I've studied a whole bunch I've got two certifications, rather two degrees. I've studied computer sciences in two different iterations, but I constantly get told that I need to upgrade my skills. Is that, when you talk about upskilling, does that mean, hey, we're going to teach you how to go back to school? Or does it mean, hey, we're going to help you take some quick industry certification programs and get you certain additional industry validations that will help you in your progress? Help us understand the difference and what do we mean by upskilling, Carmen?
Absolutely. To the person that posed this question, congrats on such a great accomplishment. So in terms of upskilling, I think a lot of people or job seekers identify that as the more certificates, the better. The more I learn into, really, really get granular into the specific knowledge. For example, artificial intelligence, machine learning, those are very, very trendy words right now. Okay. But what does that actually do? So think about it from a jobs perspective, right? From the actual doing of the job. And that's what employers kind of mean a lot of time, is that you don't really have the skill sets for it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have the qualifications, but you may not have the right application to those qualifications, meaning you've never actually worked in a really robust data environment. A lot of artificial intelligence work and machine learning, cybersecurity, they're very data oriented. They're very mathematically oriented. And typically you would have a computer engineering degree, or you have some sort of skill set that would allow for you to leverage that in a real environment. And so upskilling doesn't necessarily mean, getting, a bunch of certificates. It may just mean that, get your foot into the door of a company that focuses on these types of work. So potentially being a data scientist or being a data analyst in these companies will really allow for you to get your step in. As you go through, the process of your day-to-day skills and day-to-day work, that is where the tactical and tangible upskilling comes into place. And so for the person who's posing this question, potentially, start small, get into a company that is still IT related, or potentially not. Somebody like Medha's, organization, they focus on health, but it also has a very robust IT side to it. So that is something that you may want to look into, right? It doesn't necessarily mean, I have to work for a specific technical company that is technology focused, such as Google or Amazon, and I must work in those. You can start off with smaller startup companies and really learn the skill sets of how the day-to-day functions look like and what that actual job looks like. And I think that's a lot of times that's where the confusions lie, or, some of the gaps lie where, okay, well, I applied for this job. They're telling me to get more certificate. Let's get more certificate. But we really need to make sure that upskilling also means getting that real life experience, regardless of where you start and the size of the company. I hope that answers some of your questions. And as our employment landscape evolves, there will be more competition in certain areas, right? As I mentioned earlier, as the data platform and um, as the environment changes and evolves into more virtual, the more the data comes into play, the more cybersecurity analysts we need to have. And even those without that background and have that transferable skill will now they'll start looking into that because it's the trend, right? So you're now competing against people who may not have the certification, but have a whole set of skills that they can now bring value to the employer. So that's where we want to make sure that, it's not all about just the education. It's really about, coming into getting connected with employers, probably within this landscapes, events like this, getting networked, learning about how their day-to-day functions look like. And also having somebody like myself assist you through guiding you through and getting those specific skills. And that is where I think we could really identify the difference, and so that you can really take advantage, as job seekers, take advantage of the different types of upskillings that you could do.
Absolutely. And on this trend of upskilling is where we can go back and just take it back a couple of steps, where I mentioned about the aspect of voice acting and the new workshops that Connexhealth is offering. So I remember I did join in that workshop, Medha, for the first 15 to 20 minutes, and you would have seen me on just pretty much clueless, smiling as if I was modeling for toothpaste, because this was a completely new idea. And you pitched this idea of why voice acting and learning how to modulate your voice and learning how to perform in front of a camera is really important for therapists, really important for healthcare workers right now for a variety of reasons. Medha, can you talk to us about this unique workshop that you're offering, and why did you feel the need for it, Medha?
Thanks, Ali. It's a very uncertain time. It's a very unique time that we are in.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. And because of this uniqueness, um, we have to look at different skill sets. As we've talked about quite a bit on this panel, we're doing a lot of things virtually. There are virtual interviews, there are virtual meetings, there are virtual marriages. There's everything virtual now. And due to that, it's very important for people to know how to be good orators, how to be able to present themselves.
I agree.
So we have partnered with Christian Potenza. He is a voiceover actor. He's been doing that for the past 30 years. And the reason why we thought it would be a good avenue, not only for our healthcare staff and our therapists, as they do have to be able to not only, I don't want to say associate with their clients, but also when you're working with children with special needs, my therapists have to keep them busy for that session, which is an hour and a half long session. They have to keep them entertained. They have to keep them engaged. And in order to do that, having that voice variation helps. But we not only have seen an impact on the therapists, but we also seen impact on our youth and our young adults who have taken these workshops. They have been able to better express themselves. They've been able to better communicate. So it has had an impact on everyone. And our workshops are actually starting on November 14th. They run for 4 weeks
Yeah.
and they are an hour and a half long. And they are a very unique way of learning how to be a better orator, but also it might be a career opportunity for many.
Yeah.
As I've gone ahead and I've learned more about voice acting, what I've learned is people who get good agents can do ads for places like Walmart and Amazon and other big companies.
Yep.
So that might be a career opportunities for someone.
And I couldn't have said it better, because one of the elements that has emerged out of this pandemic and the new normal, rather two of them, is I often find a lot of folks thinking that, all right, we'll go back to where we were before. You know what? There isn't going to be that going back before, because the psyche has already been shaped in a certain way where we are interacting differently. People will, for example, often I have students that ask me, hey, when I walk into an interview, is it, should I shake hands? And typically I would say yes, unless there's any cultural reasons why somebody wouldn't want to shake your hands or some obvious health reasons. Yes, you do extend your hand, and you have a handshake that builds a form of trust, and you make eye contact, and you humbly respect the person that has received you in their organization, so on and so forth. That's not coming back for a pretty long time. You're going to learn how to, or you're going to have to learn how to conduct an interview, sitting a little bit apart from someone, even if you are in the same physicality or the same physical building. Secondly, I think it's so important that when you look at folks who have this been displaced from a careers perspective, where they've landed at now. I'll give you an example. I have quite a few friends who work in the hospitality business. Many of them now have become support staff to people who are running online events. So how do you set up, for example, something on Hopin? How do you do something on Cyber Exchange or whatever have you? They are the back-end staff onboarding people, giving them what they need. Things have changed, the dial has shifted, and you need to tune into those elements. We've got another few minutes, and I do want to take this last question that has come in, and then we'll come to some closing comments. I know all of you have other commitments, and I'd like to give you a little bit of breathing room before your next sessions. Kerry, let's start off with you. This is a direct question, and that is on, when Carmen mentioned about upskilling and, taking other certifications or looking at them, is there any funding that the individuals or job seekers can access through the Career Foundation to pay for some of their upskilling needs? Kerry?
Certainly. So I guess the major funding that we have had for many years would be the Second Career Program.
Yep.
So some of the listeners may be familiar with that program. So it's a program for individuals who have been laid off from employment, have been perhaps job searching for quite a while, not able to get into the fields that they were laid off from. The idea is maybe more, in some cases it's upskilling, but maybe more reskilling, having some funding to go into training, whether it's a college or university. Normally the program is a bit shorter. So there's the Second Career Program, which certainly can be investigated. We also have a program called the Canada Ontario Job Grant that we offer. We've offered that since around 2013 or so. So it's a program with both Canadian and provincial funding. And it's more specifically for employers who have employees to upskill those employees. So it's what an employer can do is they can apply for the funding. So whether they have a couple of employees they would like to upskill in certain areas, or whether it's 10, 20, 30 employees, they can apply for the funding. And depending on the size of the company, depends on how much funding they would get. It's a great program, and it's really been viewed very, very well from different companies who are looking to upskill their employees. And especially now, I can see that it can certainly be advantageous with new skills being needed every single day.
Absolutely. And speaking of that aspect of new skills needed every other day, Carmen, this will be the closing question for you, and then we'll have closing comments from Medha and wrap it all up. Carmen, quick and simple is this question on how does Career Foundation then differ from other recruitment firms that are out there? Is it a competitor to other recruitment firms, or do you collaborate with other recruitment firms as well? Carmen?
Absolutely. It's a great question to bring up because we are, an Employment Ontario agency. However, we do collaborate with employers that are other recruitment firms. And what that just essentially means is that our landscape is very broad compared to a single recruiting firm. So because we collaborate and partner up with, private or private recruitment firms, we're able to also have eyes on what they're offering. And we also have information on the types of trends that are going on, the types of jobs that are coming out, especially during this time. We have a lot of course, technical based jobs because everything is now online. And that kind of allows for us to now think strategically, what types of initiatives do we need to, bring up? What types of things, what types of jobs and trends and skills should we have within our job force? So that's now we're working on job force development to make sure that we can now fill in those gaps, right? Not only for the job seekers who are seeking, but for the employers who are looking to fill those gaps. And so with all of that, that kind of wraps up everything to say, we have a very 360 view into our job of the employment trend and platform and landscape within Ontario. We do have very extensive partnerships with, again, private and public companies, as well as recruiting firms. We're not exactly in competition with them. It's more that we do complement each other in ways that, private firms may not have. Because they are each other's competitor, because they're incentivized in a certain way, as we're not incentivized in a certain way. So being here, you have really that, being a job seeker or an employer partner, whether you're a startup or a new grad, you really have that non-biased view in terms of really having a support and someone following you throughout the journey and providing that, skills upgrade, be it skills upgrade, second career, whatever the case is. So we're able to give you that holistic view from that perspective.
Fantastic, Carmen. Thank you so much for that. And Medha, we'll land with you with a couple of closing comments. And one of the things that you're seeing a lot of the mayors from across Ontario, the premier also talk about, is they're asking different, they're not only are they asking people to buy local, but they're asking businesses also to look at ways in which they can support new employment opportunities. Is there anything that we do have some folks who are entrepreneurs, maybe even pharmacists? Is there anything that they can do to support the new employments that you are creating? Medha?
Thanks, Ali. Before I answer that question, one of the things I do want to highlight, we've been talking a lot about skills,
Yeah,
and I do want to let people know, don't forget your soft skills.
yeah,
Just because we're doing things virtually doesn't mean we ignore those, because those are the ones that are going to set you apart from your competition.
absolutely. Yeah,
So don't forget those. Going back to what we can offer is by us creating better partnerships with our pharmacies, partnerships with new pharmacies, partnerships with our local vendors, we are able to open up new job markets. We are able to open up new opportunities.
yeah.
And that is something that we are working hard with, we are working consistently on, is creating those new partnerships. And we do want to keep working with our regional partners, including our regional pharmacies, our regional healthcare providers, to provide better care.
So, to the pharmacists that are listening out there, to any folks who are looking at delivering healthcare services, there is a new fleet of drivers that are available to you. There's a new fleet of IT folks who can assist you with the applications that you need, APIs that you probably need written to for other folks to call upon your services. Medha has been instrumental in hiring a lot of students, a lot of newcomers to Canada as well, and has been investing in them as well. So if you are listening, please do connect with her. If you're watching the session right now on cyberexchange.ca, you'll see to the bottom of your screen, you've got information that's being relayed all the time. The Connexhealth website is there. The Career Foundation website is there. And if you go on cyberexchange.ca, you'll be able to message Medha, Kerry, or Carmen directly as well. Or if you go on their websites, you will find their contact information. We have come close to the end of our time, and I do know that a lot of you have other places to be. So I am going to wrap the conversation up. We've had about 90 odd listeners tuning in from various sources, and I do appreciate all of their time. To our audience, I hope that you were able to cue in on a couple of resources that are now available to you when you are looking to hire. But also, if you are looking to break into this market and you need that extra assistance, that is available for you. And thanks to some of the entrepreneurs that we have out there, thanks to the provincial fundings that are available, many of these services are hidden secrets that all of you need to tap into. Carmen, Kerry, Medha are extremely, extremely effective and busy individuals as well. But I can assure you that if you write to them, you will hear back, and you will get a response, and you will get guided in the path that you want to go to. I also hope that you've paid attention to the fact that we've been talking about information security, technology, and jobs and opportunities in this space. And we have diversity at the very core of what we're doing. These are women leaders that are taking a central role in supporting their communities in whatever which way that they can. And I hope that amidst knowing all of the resources that are available to you, you've also understood through their calm and composed demeanor through this challenging time that they've been in, is that your mental health is also extremely important for you. I know this from personal experience that all of these individuals on this call consistently during our meetings make sure that they ask those around them, how are you? How's it going? And how are you taking care of yourself during this important time? That goes a very, very long way. I hope you enjoyed this session. There are a few more sessions coming up with Net Mechanics, Contact North, and Precise Sparkling. My name is Ali Hirji, and on behalf of myself, the Cyber Exchange team, and everybody at Durham College, Medha from Connexhealth, Kerry from the Career Foundation, and Carmen from the Career Foundation, I wish you all a safe day and enjoy the rest of the Careerxpo. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone.